Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, She Sews Happiness. If you haven't been here before, by means of introduction, my name is Mary Ellen and this is where I share with you my sewing journey, what I've been buying, making, tips and tricks for working with certain fabrics and certain patterns. And today really I just want to give you a bit of a view into how I found working with the Chalk Notch Fringe Dress. Now I have made the pattern before, but I've just revisited it. It was actually this time last year when I first made this pattern, and I made it out of a double gauze fabric. And if you look back at my previous videos, my last video was all about talking about how I sew with double gauze, the tips and the tricks I keep in mind, and some beautiful patterns that I recommend for sewing with double gauze. And this is one of those patterns. So I thought I would chat a wee bit about the pattern today because I absolutely love it. How I've only made it twice now, I don't know. I just think we're so spoiled for choice, aren't we, with patterns, that it's hard to do justice to some of them. We just don't have the time to keep up with everything we want to do. So the fringe dress, as I say, I did make this time last year. And just like today, when it's blowing a gale and snowing outside, it was pretty much the same weather last year when I decided to make my first version of the dress in the sunniest colour you could possibly imagine. And I don't know what it is about this time of year, but it just seems to be that halfway through February, I'm just a bit tired of winter. I'm done with wearing winter clothes and I start to pull out things with more colour and expression out of my wardrobe. And I just love brightness. I think, you know, on a grey day, a little bit of colour goes a long way as well. So yeah, that yellow double gauze got a lot of wear last year, but was tucked away in the wardrobe until I pulled it out in preparation for spring with a few other pieces, just in the hopes that a sunny day is not that far around the corner. So the the Chalk Notch fringe dress comes with two variations really. So you have a top version and you have a dress version. And for each of those you have the choice of making the pattern with either a notched neckline, I'll pop a picture in because I haven't made it to show you, or a V-neck button-up neckline, and that's the one that I chose. So I do prefer to wear button-up dresses, and I think that's because when I was wearing ready to wear, it was a luxury I couldn't always get. So I do indulge in wearing button-up clothes as much as possible. And also on my Singer sewing machine, and maybe I'll talk about my sewing machines in one of my videos, but I just find Singer make the best buttonholes that I've ever encountered. Whether that be on my starter machine, which was a little fashion mate, or the automatic buttonholes that I can create on my Quantum Stylist. I've never ever had a faux pas moment with a buttonhole on a Singer sewing machine. And sometimes I see people struggling with buttonholes on other branded machines, and I've never had that, so I can't even sympathise or empathise with them because I'm just sitting here loving the fact that my machine never does any wrong in that department. Touch wood. So yeah, buttons I use as much as possible, and I'll talk about what I've used a wee bit later on once I've talked a wee bit about the pattern. So the pattern I think is really, really well drafted. It's drafted, I think, with all levels of sewists in mind. The way in which it's drafted means that there's not an awful lot of modifications that you'd need to make to this pattern to wear it, because it's got dolman sleeves, ultimately forgiving, little cuffs that you sew on. It's not that fitted, it actually has a lot of excess ease in the pattern, for which reason I actually sized down from the size my measurements would tell me to make, and I just think it's beautiful. So you do have some darts to give it a bit of shape. So there's darts here in the waist, and again, if you wanted to make this dress a bit looser, you could possibly just leave out the darts and do it that way. You'll see that there are no massive darts here at the bust. There is a tiny bust dart, and I can't even show you maybe like half an inch in there, and that's on a D cup size. So again, there's quite a bit of ease built into this as well. You've got a lot of room at the waist, and that's why I've sized down, because I prefer my clothes to be a bit more fitted at the waist. And then you've got these waist ties if you want to bring it in even more. But it's very, very easy to put together. It's not to say it won't take a wee bit of time, because you do have wee fussy bits like sleeve tabs and cuffs and waist ties and buttonholes and things there to work with, but it's a really satisfying make. And I do think that because there aren't that many adjustments you need to make, you can make this with confidence no matter what level of a sewist you actually were. The instructions are also really clear. I really enjoyed the instructions for this pattern. It's the only chalk and notch pattern I've actually made to date, but I would have no hesitation recommending this. As long as you take your time and you read it properly, you'll be absolutely fine. And as I say, it's not the fastest sew, but it does come together quite easily. There are minimal pieces for what you've actually got here. There are a lot of features that I love. I love the neckline, I love the cuffs. It's kind of got that real casual feel, and yet if I stuck a gorgeous pair of stiletto heels and carried a clutch bag, I think this dress would look beautiful, even for an evening meal or something like that. There is a curved hem, and in my original first variation of this dress I used the curved hem, and I think that was kind of like a beginner problem error, because I didn't really know, having not worked with double gauze before, that making a curved hem wouldn't be all that straightforward. And I did kind of have to put a running stitch in there and gather it up just to get it to sit flat. And then of course I couldn't press it that much either, because I was making a metallic dotted double gauze dress, so it was a lot of faffing about. And so I think from previous experience, even though this dress and this fabric would have worked perfectly with a curved hem, I just cut the corner and made it a lovely straight gathered skirt. There are pockets as well, and I am one of those people who absolutely has to have pockets in a dress. I have a couple of dresses, including this one, that when I was constructing, I forgot to put the pockets in. And I've come back to it at a later date and put the pockets in, because, you know, I just keep going to throw my keys or my phone in there, and I didn't have that as an option. So that's what I've done. So yeah, love the pattern, love the illustrations, love the drafting, love the instructions. I love everything about it. And even though it's not really the kind of pattern that my signature style would orient towards, I do get a lot of wear out of the first one, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of wear out of this. So I do want to talk a little bit about the supplies that I've used to make my William Morris Strawberry Thief dress, and pay homage, I suppose, to Pigeon Wishes, who were the suppliers of fabric and buttons for this. So I'm going to pull the dress in a little bit more, just so you can kind of see, and it looks huge in perspective, and I feel really diminutive, I think, beside it. But this is a fabric which I sourced from Pigeon Wishes. Absolutely love their selection of fabrics. We know them usually because they are a wholesale supplier to fabric stores, but they do have a selection of fabrics on their website for the general public to buy as well. And this William Morris Co-Original Strawberry Thief Tencel ramie was right up my street. I absolutely love William Morris, both in terms of aesthetics and writing, so I could not resist this beautiful, beautiful fabric when I saw it. And its composition, if my memory serves me, is 80% Tencel and 20% ramie. And when I got it, I realized, having not known anything about ramie, that actually that 20% changes it quite significantly, because this isn't really like any Tencel I've ever worked with before. I'm a big fan of Tencel, always have been ever since I first started sewing, because one of my main instigators when I am making my handmade garments is that I be as sustainable as I possibly can, as much as I possibly can. And I've always gravitated towards Tencel for that reason. You know, in the first place, Tencel, which is basically just trademark of Lenzig, always works with sustainable produce. So Tencel, you may or may not know, is made from wood pulp, which makes it a natural fibre, but the wood pulp that they use to make it is all sourced from FSC recognised forests. So sustainability being a key, I think that's really important. So Tencel is very similar, I suppose, to rayon, to viscose. It's just, it has much nicer properties in terms of sustainability and environmental credentials than what viscose does. So this is made of cellulosic regenerated fibres, basically. And usually Tencel will have a little bit more drape than what this one does. I think it's that 20% of ramie that's actually making it a wee bit more structured, and I think therefore making it perfect to make the fringe dress, because you get that lovely definition of the skirt. It makes it really easy to work with the cuffs and the sleeve tabs. I think if you were making with viscose, actually making things like these tiny little Rolo strap ties would be a bit of a pain in the ass. It's okay when working with this because there's that slight structure built into this fabric. Now, another thing that I do want to talk about, and that's not to say I don't sometimes sew with viscose. I do have a couple of things that I've made from viscose in the past, but if I had to choose between the two, this is the one I would go for. I'd always go for the Tencel, because the way in which it is made means that they do not use any toxins during the production of the Tencel, and that is not true of viscose production. Sadly, we all love viscose for its drape. I mean, we'll have to admit that it is unbeatable in terms of drape, but it does use a highly toxic carbon, is it carbon disulfide? I think, I'm not great with chemicals and stuff. I'm not really a scientist. I'm an arts and humanities person. But all I know is that the production of viscose can actually cause damage to viscose workers. And it is well documented that textile workers' health does suffer quite a lot in the production of some fabrics, and viscose sadly is one of those fabrics. So there's a lot of research out there showing that viscose and rayon workers suffer from polyneuropathy. And shockingly, that can cause like numbness and weakness of the arms, legs, muscles, and in really extreme cases can cause like a burning pain sensation as well. So if we stop buying viscose, I don't think, you know, a handful of us are going to stop the production of it. But I do think that we need to think about the ramifications on workers in general. So if you are going to buy viscose, buy like dead stock or something like that. And if you can push the budget and source the same kinds of designs and everything that you love, I just think Tencel is a really beautiful, conscience-worthy product to buy. Now the ramie, just out of interest, because honestly I had no idea what it was. I had to look it up whenever I got the fabric because I was really curious. And what I discovered was that it's something that has been in production in China for like 6,000 years or more. And it's even said that it used to be used for wrapping mummies in ancient Egypt, because it kind of has like a resistance to bacteria and mildew. And I know like my birthday is around the corner and I'm turning 39, but I feel a bit weird about wearing something that was used to wrap mummies. I'm not that old yet. But I just think it's a really interesting fibre. It seems to be very similar to linen actually. It gives a wee bit of structure. And it used to be used to weave clothing. So again, you've got that woven aspect to it, and it does give a wee bit more rigidity to this Tencel that I have used here today. And I do have to point out that I have not properly pattern matched the front of my dress. Pattern matching is something I absolutely love, and if I have enough fabric I will painstakingly spend the time doing that. I just didn't have enough fabric, and when I originally bought it, it was with something else in mind. So I was squeezing my dress out of a bit less than what I should have to start with, and then never quite got it cut so that it was perfectly pattern matching. Saying that, I don't think you really notice because of the way this print is, and I was careful in little ways, like making sure the center of the back was mirroring. I did make sure that the colors and directions of the birds were lined up in the front bodice, both sides. You can see, maybe, I was really close. I literally just couldn't squish it that extra like ½ inch to make it perfectly line up. And saying that, if I was to lose a little weight, which I do have to do, but you know, no pressure or anything, and I had to move the buttons ever so slightly to get a nicer fit, it would actually pattern match. So I'm holding on to that as a little bit of a plus. And then the other thing I just want to show you while I'm here are these gorgeous buttons that I also got from Pigeon Wishes, and I think they work so beautifully with this fabric. I didn't want something that was clashing with the fabric, but I also didn't want something that would disappear, and these just seem to be the perfect solution. So these are actually, as I say, Pigeon Wishes buttons, and they are called Nightshade. They are a shirting button, so they were the perfect size for this. And just so I can show you, because I think they're absolutely gorgeous. Look at them, aren't they beautiful? I think the shades and the colours are absolutely stunning. And they just work really beautifully there on the fabric that I've chose to sew with. So that's my cotton, why do I keep saying cotton? Chalk Notch Fringe Dress. Oh, I know, there is a pattern company called Cotton and Chalk, and I think they're getting muddled in my head, and I've made some of their patterns, so maybe that's what's in the back of my head. But these I just absolutely love. I love Pigeon Wishes buttons anyhow, and that's the thing, I do kind of fear between real vintage styles, and I love vintage haberdashery, but there's something about Pigeon Wishes, even though they're ultra modern, that just appeals to me, and I have to keep putting them into my wardrobe. So hopefully you have enjoyed hearing about my fringe dress by Chalk and Notch. Yes. And if you haven't made it before, maybe you'll feel inspired to make it. I love both variations that I've made, even though they're very different. I mean, I've used the same pattern, but I've got two very different garments to wear. And this I cannot wait to wear, but I will not be wearing it in the snow because really it's very light. It's like a cotton lawn in weight, so it's not the weather for it no matter how many layers I'm sticking on. It's also not the weather for skirts that might possibly flare, because literally the gusts are flying everywhere thanks to Storm Eunice. So yeah, I need to go and think what I'm going to wear before I leave the house today. Have a fantastic day, whatever you're doing. It's the weekend as well, so really enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you get some sewing done, and yeah, let me know what you think of the fringe dress, which of the variations you prefer, and hopefully I'll be back on YouTube soon with some new content. I'm hoping to have a lot of lovely new fabrics to show you actually. I am just waiting for transport not to be affected by the storms and the weather we're having, so maybe even tomorrow I'll have some beautiful new fabrics that I can share with you then next week. Happy sewing everyone, and thank you so much for stopping by. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, you know what to do. Bye!